Rolling, quiet on set. Sound speeds, camera speeds. MPC3 release, the Quakes Motel. Take one. Set. Action. Hello, welcome to the Quakes Motel. My name's Conan. So, unless you've been living under a rock for the last 24 hours, you're probably aware that MPC3 has been released in standalone, the official release out of beta. And Akai have teamed up with Native Instruments. Now, that's pretty big news for me personally, and quite unexpected. Blindside completely. Now, I'm not usually someone to make a video about something unless I've spent some time with it. I'm not really into making videos where I'm just regurgitating a press release or reading whatever Akai's put on their website, fumbling around, not really knowing what I'm doing. However, I have spent some time with the new MPC3 standalone release, and I wanted to give my initial impressions before making longer videos on the new functions in more detail in the coming weeks. Let's jump in. So before I get into the new additions, I'm just quickly going to go over some of the functions. If you've been using beta, you're already aware of them. But if you're updating to MPC3 for the first time, just want to quickly go over those. The obvious one is the main page when you first load it up. You have access to track and arrangement. This is all slightly different with effects send, in, out, level, etc. Close that down. The new grid view where you can access the grid here. Let's just take buses off, or you have a linear arrangement page here. The mixer is new. Really good addition for me. And then obviously pad mix as well. So now let's get into the exciting stuff. Let's get into the new additions to the new actual release candidate, the final MPC3. Native Instruments. There's some plugins and there's some expansions. You have to pay for them, firstly. So for instance, one of the plugins is Analog Dreams. I do actually own that already for Contact, but I can't use that. I have to buy it again. It's a new license completely. It's not transferable. And I've seen some people kicking off about that. I understand. I'm not massively happy that I bought Analog Dreams and now I have to re-buy it again if I want to use it in my MPC, but it's not a deal breaker for me. Black Friday, sales, etc. The prices are very reasonable in my opinion. But, you know, I do understand why some people are kicking off a little bit about it. But, you know, that's what we do. We love to kick off about things. But so there's a couple of plugins and there's a couple of expansions. I'm not going to go into massive detail about these because firstly, I haven't bought them, so I can't really show you them. And secondly, I'd like to do more in detail videos. And also there's already going to be a bunch of videos by the time this is published. But it's big news. I mean, this is big news. Native Instruments and Akai joining together, collaborating. Going forward in the future, will they continue to collaborate? We shall see. But it's big news because, you know, most people consider Machine and MPC to be big rivals. Obviously, Contact and Battery are, from Native Instruments, are rivals to the MPC software. You know, this is kind of like, now is everybody going to be friends? Is everybody going to get on? Will that reflect in the community? Who knows? Not judging by some of the things I saw yesterday on the community, but so let's just have a quick look. I did actually download one of the plugins. Quickly, let's just have a look at it. So if you go to new track and you go to plugin, now with your list of plugins, you will see, if you go down, you have Native Instruments accessible. And here we go. Let's load up Analog Dreams. Takes a little time. I'm literally loading this for the first time, by the way. Haven't even looked at it yet. And it's taking a little bit longer than I expected. But there you go. So jumping into the plugin, obviously, we have this first page here. And again, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I've seen people moving this around and this is obviously going to change the sound, etc. And we have these options here. And then all the way along the bottom, I mean, this is amazing. This looks really good. I like the way this looks. It's hands-on. Analog Dreams has got some great sounds, certainly the one that I've been using on from Native Instruments on my DAW for a long time. Some great sounds, so I'm sure some of those are on there. So that's really cool. Like I said, I'm not going to go into massive detail. And then obviously with the expansions, I can't really go into those either because I haven't bought those. But from what I've seen, they look really good. And I'm imagining that going forward, Native Instruments and Akai are going to continue to collaborate and we're going to see a lot more expansions. Maybe some of the older expansions from Native Instruments are going to become available. Now, one of the first things that I will say about this is, obviously, we're used to... Now, let me just quickly say, with Machine, for instance, I haven't used Machine since the first ever Machine. I've never used it since then. Not for any particular reason, but I bought the first one and then I kind of went completely in the box again and didn't really use any hardware, etc. But the original Machine was just a controller. It wasn't actually a standalone sampler. So I haven't used the Machine standalone sampler. So I don't know how that handles the Native Instruments plugins. I don't know what kind of processing power it has. I'm not going to pretend that I do. But one of the first things I'll say is, for instance, in things like Contact, Battery, some of the Native Instruments synths, they're quite processor power heavy. They like a lot of RAM. They like a lot of CPU. So I'm imagining that these plugins and expansions, etc., have been optimized by Akai and Native Instruments to work in the MPCs. Now, as I haven't really jumped into them an awful lot, I don't know how optimized they are. I can't say. And over time, I guess we're going to find out how well are they going to work when there's a ton of other plugins on there. You know, how much processing power do they take? Obviously, you saw how long it took to load up. They were not a major deal. I mean, when I load up a Contact instrument, for instance, that can take some time. And I've got, you know, a pretty heavy duty computer and that still takes some time. And also some of the Contact instruments I use, like some of the full orchestras, you know, I've got 32 gig of RAM on my laptop and it can chew into that and stutter and I have to drop the buffer in, etc., that kind of thing. So the fact that even these are going to work in the MPC with the amount of RAM that we have and, you know, the CPU is a miracle in itself. How well they'll work, I guess we'll see going forward. So I'm not exactly sure how well that these have been optimized. So the next thing, big thing, is some of the additions to Keygroups. So if you go into Keygroups, we now have a whole bunch of new options in here. And also I want to point out as well, I noticed this, and this was Marlo Diggs that I noticed. I hadn't actually even noticed, but he pointed it out. You can actually go back to the legacy if you want, but we don't want to look at that today. We want to look at all these new things. There's a bunch of new things. And again, like I said, I'm not going to go into it too much now because it's a whole nother video, but there's a lot of additions to Keygroups. So if you're somebody who really likes making your own instruments, etc., you've got way more things to play around with, extra filters, etc. I haven't gone into it in massive, I haven't dived in depth, etc., but it looks fun. And I'm really, really looking forward to making some new Keygroup instruments, etc., and playing around with that. Another thing that I noticed was in the warp section, for instance, actually it's in program edit and we want to be in a drum program. So let's just go here. There we go. Into program edit. In the warp section now, you have a choice of algorithms. So we can turn on warp there, Pro 10, and we now have repitch. Again, I'm not going to go into massive detail, but it's going to help you out when you're changing, when you've found the tempo of a particular sample, being able to repitch it in real time. So that's interesting. And again, I've played around with it very, very briefly this morning, and I don't really want to go into it too much because it's a whole video. But it's really fun, and I love the fact that they're addressing the algorithms. Will we see some more algorithms, some of the proper pro algorithms that we can have on our DAWs? Potentially, yes. But obviously it's going to take up a lot of CPU and RAM, so I don't really know whether that's actually really going to happen. So overall, all exciting stuff. The Native Instruments thing is obviously the big thing that everybody's talking about, and it's really, really exciting, you know, going forward. However, let's talk about some of the negatives. I don't want to be the party pooper, but these are also just my opinions, obviously, as well. Some of these are very subjective. I honestly feel that Akai didn't fill the community with confidence on MPC 3. The whole beta thing, there were so many bugs. There are so many people still saying, I'm never going to update. I don't want to update. There's issues with older projects. And a lot of the bugs, and there was a large list, have not been resolved. You know, they've not addressed them, not even addressed them, not even answered them. And in my opinion, when you release something, you want to instill total confidence in your fan base before the release, so that when MPC 3 comes out, for instance, everyone is like, brilliant, now I can update. And I'm not seeing that in the community. I'm not seeing people say, brilliant, now I can update. I'm still seeing people say, well, have they sorted this out? Oh my God, they still haven't sorted that out. You know, the older projects thing, the time signatures thing, there's a bunch of things that I would consider personally fundamental issues. And they've added a lot of superficially attractive bonuses for us, which are great. I'm not going to knock those. But they've not dealt with the fundamental issues, or they've not dealt with some of the fundamental issues. You know, what use are these new Native Instruments plugins if you don't have confidence in your operating system? Or you can't change time signatures? And I just kind of feel that some of these bonuses are perhaps a bit of a distraction. You know, we don't know how optimized the Native Instruments plugins are. Are they going to cause more problems? Are they concentrating, or are they concentrating on future machines, which may render the present machines obsolete? You know, newer, faster plugins. And, you know, are they pushing people into a situation where they have to update if they want to use the newer plugins? Now, that's not an unusual thing. You know, companies have done that for years. You know, Apple, for instance, I use them as an example. You know, there are apps that you can't use on your older phones anymore. You know, even I have an iPhone 12 and I have an iPhone 15 Pro Max, and two iPads as well. Like, for instance, Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve, I can't use that on my older iPad, but I can only use it on my newer iPad. So it's not a new thing, but if you're not instilling confidence in people to update, you're you're going to alienate some of your fan base, Akai. You know, people are going to think, well, I want to update to 3, but I'm not confident about it because there's still lots of issues. But I want to update to 3 because I want to use some of these new features. So I personally think, and, you know, give me a dislike or a like, whatever you want to do. As I said, it's subjective. I don't feel like Akai have really filled us, the consumers, with an awful lot of confidence, or enough confidence to think, wow, 3 has come out, I am instantly going to update. Because I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing that on the community at all. Which, you know, in some ways is a bit of a shame, because I was kind of hoping, and I know a lot of other people were hoping as well, that when 3 was actually launched, the actual final version, that all of the bugs, or at least most of the bugs, the fundamental bugs, were ironed out. And let's not forget as well, some of the bugs that there were or are with the beta release were because of new additions that they'd added, which was the whole point of beta, to iron those out. So we're still dealing with bugs that are due to new things that they added. So what's to say there's not going to be some bugs in the Native Instruments? Now, obviously, I'm just speculating here because I haven't found any yet. So they might not be there. They might be completely ironed out. And also, you know, I've not spent enough time with it to know whether every single, you know, I've not gone through the old bug reports, the old bug list and said, yes, they've sorted that out. Yes, they've sorted that out. But they definitely haven't sorted everything out. And there are some fundamental issues which they haven't sorted out, which I thought would have been sorted out by the time the final release came out. So there you have it. A lot to think about there, a lot to take in, lots and lots of good news, some negatives, but generally, in my opinion, despite the negatives at the end there, generally in my opinion, I think this is great for Akai, I think it's great for Native Instruments, and I think it's great for us. There's a lot of stuff to look forward to in the future. You know, the idea of having some of my favourite programs that I use in Contact, etc., being easily accessible in the MPC without me having to transfer them, make my own programs, rebuild my own key groups, etc. Because we've been able to do that for some time, but you know, there's often a lot of issues. Optimized versions of Native Instruments plugins for the MPC. I mean, the idea of that in itself is amazing. And you know, going forward, you know, I love the new arrangement window. I love the new main window, the new algorithms, the new key group functions. It's all good stuff. It really, really is all good stuff, despite the odd negative. So I personally myself am going to be doing more videos in the coming weeks, touching, going into more detail, going into more depth on some of the features, but I want to spend a bit more time with them. I don't want to fumble around or just read a press release. So this is the Crates Motel. My name's Conan. Till next time.